Be prepared, right from the very start and throughout, for frank and confronting descriptions of child abuse that some viewers may find upsetting.
Okay, Chris, you ready?
Yeah. For some reason my mouth is dry as hell today.
Rolling.
I don't know really why Eunice did all this stuff to us, all this abuse. I don't think she was insane. I don't think she was particularly mad. Just evil. Just pure evil.
"30-year-old Christopher was abused by his foster mother, Eunice, from the age of 3.
I had a lump in the bottom part of my jaw, which was, they found a little chunk of metal and some wood debris from, well, we can only assume it's from where Eunice used to ram things into our mouth. You know, the one time she put a steak knife in there. I remember it hitting the back of my teeth. And one of the things I found when they were pulling all this debris out was a tiny little triangle of metal. And one of the doctors thinks it's a knife tip. I was born in Cheltenham. The house I lived in, my parents didn't take care of it. There was no carpet on the floors. There was... the kitchen was absolutely abysmal. It was a place I was happy to move out of.
Christopher was taken into care at the age of 3 and went to live with respected foster mother and devout Jehovah's Witness, Eunice.
I remember the first day arriving at Eunice's. Eunice picked us up in a big yellow Volvo. To me, this was the most exciting thing ever because I was obsessed with cars. And you have to drive through the countryside to get to Tewkesbury. It was my first proper trip to the countryside. It was amazing. When I rolled up at the house, there was a big green lawn, there was some swings. I'd never been on a swing before, so this was like the most magical thing ever to me. And I remember just sitting in the sandpit and just feeling the sand on my feet and all new sensations at the time. It was, you know, it was a dream come true for a kid who had left Cromwell Road, you know, the worst road in Cheltenham. So, yeah, really happy memories at the start.
Christopher was now part of a big family and had 2 new sisters, Charlotte and Victoria.
From the get-go, Eunice was very strict, but very loving. We were Jehovah's Witnesses, so there was a certain level of discipline. But the first time she crossed the red line, as such, was the chocolate incident. Some chocolate went missing in the house. We were taken up into Charlotte's bedroom, and we made to stand in a semicircle in front of Eunice, and she went to each one of us and like, "Did you take the chocolate? No. Did you take the chocolate? No." But at that point, Eunice got a chair leg. It was a gnarly old Victorian chair that the legs had come off, and she got one of those, and we all stood barefoot in front of her, and she just whacked the top of our feet. Bang, bang, bang. It was the first time I'd ever felt real pain, and I remember dropping to the floor straight away because the pain was shocking. None of us knew quite how to deal with what had just happened. It wasn't until the next day when my sister and I were going to have a bath, and we saw the cuts on our feet, and I put my foot in the water and screamed. It was just an open wound, and I think at that point we knew something had happened. Something had changed in our lives.
where we grew up. That's the street I lived on. Those trees down there where me and my little sister used to go and hide when my mum was kicking off.
35-year-old Katrina grew up in Oldham with her little sister, Dad John, and Mum Susan.
I tried desperately to love my mum, but no, I didn't love her. My mum was evil. She frightened me. I didn't dare breathe the wrong way around her in case I got slapped or punched. And she'd regularly say she gave us life and she could take it away just as easily.
Katrina was mentally and physically abused by her mother throughout her childhood. But 3 years ago, she finally took her mum to court.
On the 5th of March 2018, she was sentenced and she was given a 2-year suspended sentence by the judge. I believe she should have got a harsher sentence, but because of her ill health, she was given a 2-year suspended.
Today, Katrina has returned to the estate she grew up on to show her friend Carrie where the abuse happened.
It'd always start after she'd had a drink. She liked to drink a wine. She'd start drinking a few beers and then a wine, and then she'd just kick off with my dad, at which point I used to run upstairs with my sister and we'd barricade the door. My mum she slashed at me with knives. She used to drag me out of bed by my hair and drag me all over the house. Slap, punch, kick, bite me. We hid weapons like knives or anything that she could use as a weapon against us.
But sometimes, Katrina was caught unprepared for an onslaught of violence.
When my mum tried to drown me, I was 11. So it was Sunday night before school, and I took myself for a bath. And I'd run the bath and I was laying in the bath washing my hair, and I heard her come banging and barging up the stairs, and she just flung the bathroom door open. She said, "I'm washing your hair." I said, "You're not, I can wash my own hair." She went, "I'm washing your hair." And then she got hold of my hair, she got hold of my head, and she pushed my head under the water. And I just remember not being able to breathe. I was lashing around and trying to get her off me. And I had to bite her hand. I had to almost bite through her hand to get her to let go of me. And I was screaming, and I grabbed the towel and ran into the bedroom, just stayed in the bedroom. I was so scared. That's the first time I honestly thought she was going to kill me.
Katrina was abused as a child by her monster mother Susan. Today she's back where she grew up with her friend Carrie to try and put to bed the demons of her past.
Me and my little sister would run up the street and it would be pitch black. Then we'd come out through the grass there into a little den here. And once we knew everything was clear, we'd like play Robin Hood in the trees and climb the trees and just hang around there until she'd have passed out.
Did you not wish that somebody had asked you what you were doing? Because I think as a parent, if I saw two little girls at that time in the morning going past my window, I'd be like, what is going on? Why are you going down there?
I mean, we had two lovely neighbours who did take us in regularly, and they encouraged us to ring Childline. And Mum, unfortunately, they couldn't have children. My mum would stand in the back garden shouting over the fence, "You fucking eunuch." And in the end, they moved because even they got sick of the abuse. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, people did try to help very early on. But would you challenge someone like that? The times I said, "I'm telling the police." And my mum would say to me, "Do you know what happens to little girls like you in social care? They get messed about with by nasty men."
In cases where mothers harm children, we see that domineering impact of control. In the case of Katrina's mother, we see that she uses the fear of what the outside world will do. If you leave me, you will be taken into care. If you leave me, you're going to be sexually abused. So that makes a child think, well, I need to stay here because this is better than what the outside world will do to me.
Did you not wonder why your dad weren't coming after you, or your dad weren't trying to stop this and protect you, or coming finding you after you'd been here for so long?
He was restraining her or taking the blows so we could escape.
Katrina's dad died unexpectedly in November 2018.
That woman broke my dad. When I found him dead, Carrie, on the bathroom floor, even though I knew he was dead and I wanted him not to be, the worst thing about finding him was that he was covered head to toe in scars from her. I mean, literally head to toe in scars where she'd slashed him, she'd stabbed him. And that was my dad. That was my dad she did that to. I'm sorry. I believe he could have done a lot more, and I was angry with him for a very long time. But my dad was as much of a victim to her as what myself and my sister were. She broke him. She absolutely broke him. She's a bitch. I fucking hate her. I fucking hate her what she did to him.
She's such an amazing person, Kat. She's so loving, and if you're down, she will support you. Even though she's been through all these horrible things, she will give you something of her to help you through things. And I think if I'd been through that, I don't think I could be the person that Kat is.
I'm driving to the gym. Our gym's open 24/7, so I have been known to go down there at 3 a.m. This is where I go to regain some mental clarity.
Christopher lives a life full of pain, caused by the abuse he endured as a child from his foster mother Eunice.
It's very easy for me to concentrate on the physical wins I've had, but actually most of Eunice's damage was in my brain. I suffer flashbacks. My biggest problem is flashbacks. I get, on average, 2 hours sleep, because as soon as I lay down in bed, I am just thinking of every piece of abuse that Eunice did to me.
Feeling the burn from exercise is one of the ways Christopher copes with the memories of his childhood.
Guess I know it's time to go home when I feel the same pain level as almost breaking my collarbone when Eunice smashed my collarbone up. And it's actually that injury, that the ache of that is telling me I've reached the level I need to be at. It doesn't make sense that I'm here to feel pain. But I still need that pain. It's part of who I am now, and that may not make sense at all to people who haven't been through it.
All his life he's felt pain inside, but he was also physically abused. And often people say that when the physical abuse happens, there's almost a sense of relief because they are building up, they're afraid that what is coming next. So it becomes that the physical pain is the point where, oh, okay, it's over. So they're connecting the release of pain with a release of the fear.
When I'm not feeling that pain, that freaks me out.
Violent and emotional torture is not the only abuse some children have to endure at the hands of their mother. For some, their childhood is stolen by a sexual predator. 1 in 3 children who have been sexually abused don't tell anyone at the time and can't face the trauma until they reach adulthood.
Hello?
Hello.
Right?
So how are you doing then?
Well, I haven't been all that great, hence why I texted you the other day.
No, it's all shit from the fucking past, isn't it?
But your shit from your past is my present. And I've tried to talk to you about it. You don't listen. You say, oh, why am I like the way I am? Is there any wonder with everything I've had to go through? Because I shouldn't have had to have gone through half the stuff I've gone through in my life.
In 2015, 36-year-old Daniel recorded a phone call he made to his father, confronting him about the abuse he had suffered as a child by his stepmother, Annette.
So that is a tattoo that Lady Gaga had designed for the survivors of sexual abuse. And so when I saw it, I thought, well, I'll get that for myself, just to remind me of everything that I've gone through. So I don't class myself as a victim, I class myself as a survivor.
I know why you didn't admit to it, because you were protecting you. But then who was protecting me? Where was my parents then? So I had no one. I didn't have mum, she wasn't in my life, so I only had you.
Daniel went to live with his father at the age of 6 when his parents split up.
I don't know the whole scenario in depthly. I just know that that marriage broke down and he did get custody for whatever reason. And it was just a normal, normal loving relationship.
But all that changed when Daniel's father met Annette and she became his stepmother.
I can't change what's happened in the past, Daniel.
No, I've not asked you to.
I wish the fuck that I could, because I tell you, I really do wish the fuck that I could.
I believe they'd met like online or some sort of advertisement, I believe. I guess in my dad's eyes, he just wanted another mother figure for me.
But you did stuff to make that happen back then, Dad. So don't be telling me, don't know what happened back then, because there are times that you made them things happen.
Because that was what she wanted to do.
I do remember how it first started. We had played Frustration, and I remember it, I can't remember if it was Annette or my dad, I think it was Annette who'd said, we're going to make it fun. And it was where we would, it would turn into a strip. So we'd take off clothes for, whoever was losing. And I don't think I was completely naked. I think I had some clothes on. She was certainly all naked. If I look back on it now, I think it was a test to see how I would perhaps react to the situation and just how much they could do or get away with, maybe. It was the start of what was yet to come.
Annette's so-called tests quickly moved on to something more sinister.
How, or rather why I was told to go into the bedroom, I can't recall, other than I'd be told to do things, she would do things to me. Both my dad and I would have had intercourse with her that particular day. And I guess the easiest way to explain it would be like a threesome type of situation, except for obviously I would have been 11. I obviously would have been unsure on what to do, but I think at the time I just thought it that's what happened in normal houses behind closed doors.
There is nothing in the behaviour of Annette that suggests she had any intention of being a loving, caring stepmother to Daniel, because there was no love and warmth. It was very sexualised from a very, very early start in the relationship. So for me, her intentions immediately were to abuse that boy.
I was young and naive. I didn't know what was going on back then wasn't of the norm. It wasn't until I got older that I realised it shouldn't have happened.
Daniel, I am sorry that episode actually took place. I am. And I can't explain how it came about or anything else. I know it wasn't instigated by me. But I ended up getting drawn into it, and I thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah, but you did though.
I know, and I don't know why. I really don't.
For Daniel, the long-term effects of this have been devastating. He was raped by a female sex offender, but he was raped by a female sex offender in the presence of the man who was supposed to look after him. His father was there, his father was actively involved, and he should have protected Daniel from this woman.
There were obviously other instances, and my memory is as clear as day, and there are other things that I think it's just too much for me to bear, and I'd go into deep depression. I've made many attempts of suicide over the years as a way of not being able to cope.
Christopher was taken into care at the age of 3 and went to live with foster mother Eunice, who abused him and his siblings throughout their childhood.
I'm told Eunice burnt all the photos after the police raid, and I've got a couple of photos of me as a kid. There's 2 photos, they're my only 2 photos of what I looked like when I was a kid.
As the years went by, concerns about the welfare of the children were raised.
People were starting to notice bruises, people were starting to notice cuts, and overnight she changed her abuse strategy. So it was a lot more beatings in places which couldn't be seen.
To cover her tracks, Eunice took all the children out of school and moved them to the country.
After we moved into the farmhouse, the abuse ramped up quite a bit. The drownings probably happened weekly. The beatings were daily. We were starting to be starved at this point as well. This is the farmhouse we moved into. Just above the back door is the room that I got locked in with my sister, and we got starved for, God, over a week. I remember eating those bits of newspaper and stuff. We were just eating anything we could find in that room, but it was a stripped down room because it was being reconditioned. So it was just bare floorboards and a light in the corner. One day she did bring some bread up, but when you haven't ate for a long time, we ate the food and puked it straight up. And she laughed and then told us to eat that. So we ate that, and luckily we held that down, or it would have just carried on. We were given water on a few of the days, but we probably went 3 days without water. But a couple of days you start getting hallucinations, and I remember looking at the one corner of the room and it just folding. It was almost wobbling in and out, and it terrified me because I thought it was something spiritual. We've been told, you know, anything magic is the devil's work.
The power of using faith, using religion, is that it is unquestionable. Literally, it is used to put the fear of God into Christopher. So, in addition to controlling him, it's also a further element of emotional abuse because he's terrified of what the outcome could be.
You have to understand almost how much power Eunice had over us to understand our feelings for her at the time. She was a god to us. She was There was no right or wrong. She was the only answer. It was Eunice's way or no other way. And if we couldn't do it Eunice's way, we were going against Jehovah. And if we went against Jehovah, we deserved all the discipline.
So who did you blame for this predicament at that?
Ourselves. You know, all that abuse that was happening to ourselves, we believed we'd brought it on with our behaviour. The starvation ended just as weirdly as it started, with no real reason or no ending. A sandwich got brought up and she said, "You can come downstairs now." There's a lot of sadness within these photos. A lot of stuff that shouldn't have happened.
Why don't you delete them?
I think if I deleted them, I'd be deleting the... I don't know. I'd be deleting the only evidence that I actually had a childhood at all.
This is at Christmas in my back garden at home. My dad and my sister and myself on there. My mum was on the end of this, but tore her off because I don't want us to be there. Can't even look at her. I do get anxious. Very, very anxious. Just feel... It's very hard to describe the feeling. Because it's just a mixture of emotions and it is overwhelming. And what I used to do and still do occasionally is just break down in tears and cry because there's no other way of handling it.
The thing that they struggle to get over, the thing that they struggle to heal from is how did they do that to me? How did they do that consistently, day in, day out? That is what causes the long-term trauma, because it's inside their head. It's inside and they don't know how to understand anything that happened to them because of that drip, drip, drip effect of the emotional abuse.
When I look at pictures of myself, I feel sorry for that little girl in that picture. And I want to reach into that photograph and pull out that little girl and hold her and tell her that everything is going to be okay and that the monster will go away.
When Katrina reached 16, she was thrown a lifeline. She could legally leave home and her abusive mother behind her.
My mum and dad had no idea that this was going on. My younger sister did. And I felt terrible. I felt terrible that I would be leaving her, but I just couldn't carry on anymore. So in May, when we was doing our GCSEs, my dad was on his way to work and he said, "Are you coming?" And I said, "I'm getting the later bus because my exams start later." I didn't have any that day. And I arranged with a friend to come and meet me. And my sister went to school and I could see how upset she was because she knew exactly what was happening and I was heartbroken. But I packed my backpack with my schoolwork and 3 bin liners, and that's when I left home. And I got my own place at 17. My sister came to live with me.
What is fascinating about Katrina is that despite the emotional and physical abuse that she got from her mum, despite being 16 and probably having a very low self-esteem because of the abuse from her mother, she had a resilience, a strength that is remarkable. She was able at that young age to go and seek approval to have adult status so she could get her own flat.
Katrina later used that strength when her father was in crisis at the hands of her mother, Susan.
She accused my dad of rape. She accused my dad of rape and that my younger sister was a result of that rape. After sitting there listening to this load of lies, and I remember thinking, I can't do this anymore. Can't do it.
So scared for her father's welfare, Katrina knew she had to finally do something to stop her mum.
So the only option I had, along with my younger sister, was to go to the police station and report my mum for the abuse that she subjected myself and my sister to as children.
Susan Speed stood trial and was found guilty in 2018 of child cruelty. She was given a 2-year suspended sentence for the crime she committed 18 years prior.
I would have loved for her to go to prison. In an ideal world, I'd have absolutely loved that. But I honestly didn't expect anything. I expected her to get away with it. Even in court, when my sister and I read out our victim impact statements and we looked her in the eye and said, this is how you've made us feel. You are this person. And she just shook her head and just completely expressionless. I think she's completely devoid of any emotion other than hate. Why? I don't know, and I'll never know. And that was hard to accept when I was younger. I accept now that I'll never know why.
From the age of 11, Daniel was sexually abused by his stepmother Annette in the presence of his father.
And just to be clear, it never happened before Annette and it never happened after. It was only in the relationship with Annette. So that's how I know it was something to do with their relationship as to why this happened.
Daniel's father admitted to the abuse when Daniel confronted him 23 years later during this phone call.
It's a horrible black period in my life, which I hate.
That black period you say you don't like, it's very much a memory I can't get rid of.
I had recorded my conversation with my dad, not maliciously. I had an iPhone, I think, at the time, and I had downloaded a few apps, and one of these apps was one where it records sort of like ingoing and outgoing conversations on your phone. One of the things that we had in this heated conversation was what had happened to me through my, the instances with my dad and Annette.
At the end of the day, you should have been my father and realised then I was hurting, but you didn't. All you cared about was you.
So what do you want to do then?
It's not that I'm trying to get into trouble. I just needed you to admit to me. I don't know, Dad. I really don't.
Daniel had kept his dark secrets to himself as a child, and as an adult, was still struggling with the same demons as to why he couldn't reach out for help.
I didn't know how to talk about it or who to talk about it with. I think at the back of my head, who would believe me? And ultimately it's my dad. And I thought, if I didn't have him, I'm going to have no one. But I went to the police after a conversation with my best friend. She had said, well, why don't you pursue it? At least then you'll have no regrets. And maybe this will be the closure that you need.
The phone call led to Daniel's father being taken in for questioning.
He apparently broke down crying, admitted from get-go 95% of everything I had said.
2 years later, Daniel was in court fighting for justice. Throughout the proceedings, Annette Breakspear pleaded her innocence.
The police had spoken to me to make sure that I was prepared for the worst, because my dad had already pleaded guilty. So if the jury had decided that they didn't believe everything that was presented to them, that my dad would have still had a charge, whereas she could have potentially have got off.
Do you remember her demeanour in court?
I didn't see her. I had a screen up. I didn't want to see my dad in case I wasn't able to explain everything in great detail.
During the trial, Daniel's father's legal team revealed his shocking defence for the abuse Daniel had suffered.
He had said that the reason it came about was because they wanted to steer me away from being homosexual and show me the right way. And all it done was confuse me to know who I really was, give me immense trauma and behavioural problems, I guess, through the years. And I ended up being homosexual anyway.
The main protagonist in this situation is Annette. The sexual abuse would not have occurred without her. Did she groom Daniel's father? That's probably likely. Did she convince him that conversion therapy in this sick way that they started was the way in which to change Daniel? However, for me, that doesn't explain the level of participation.
Daniel's father was sentenced for 5 years. Annette Breakspear was found guilty of 3 accounts of indecent assault, including assault by penetration, and was served an 8-year jail sentence.
There isn't a time frame in which she could get that would make me accept her punishment as a way of everything that I've experienced. The only thing I can get from it is she's finally got the consequences for her actions.
Foster mother Eunice tortured Christopher and his siblings in the name of God, but it was her religion that led to her downfall.
What saved us from Eunice was my sister was still going to church. One of the Jehovah's Witnesses just asked her blank, "What is she doing to you?" And at that point, I think Victoria broke down and told the whole story. The Jehovah's Witnesses spirited Victoria away, put her in a safe house. The police were called, and the police picked me up.
I've never dealt with a case this extreme before. Nothing at all I've come across is quite as horrendous as this case was.
Detective Constable Victoria Martell took the call when the abuse was first reported and saw the case through to court.
The first time that I met Christopher, I think he found it quite difficult at first to open up to me, to tell his story or to talk about things, because he hadn't been used to talking to people in the outside world.
But Christopher, along with all his siblings, were brave enough to give detailed accounts of their abuse.
The victims described certain items that had been used for the abuse, some of which were chair legs or just like a bamboo stick to hit them with, but also put down their throats. When the police went to the farmhouse, they found the sticks exactly where the children described them, which was behind, I think it was the living room door. And there were several sticks there, so they were all seized. And we did find marks on the stick which were consistent with teeth marks. And I believe that they were sort of blood-stained as well.
Her empire of deceit, her empire of control was slowly crumbling away from the bottom.
The children may have led the police to the key piece of evidence, but when it came to court, would the jury be drawn in by Eunice and her public persona? Eunice Spry had built a reputation as a caring foster mother, whose mission was to save vulnerable children. When she went to court in 2007, she denied all the allegations of child abuse Christopher and his siblings made against her.
She just said that these things didn't happen. She doesn't know why that they've made these dreadful allegations up about her. She was very animated when she gave evidence in court herself, and giving these wonderful stories about how lovely life was in their home. So she sort of painted a picture that everything was happy and fine, and she did her best as a mother.
Even though Christopher was 18, he still struggled with the power Eunice had over him.
The first few weeks of the court case were very hard on me because it felt very wrong putting her through that court case. She's my mum. But the sentencing told me how serious this was. When a judge sits there and says this is the worst case he's ever sat on, it's a light bulb moment. You're like, she wasn't a mum to us.
I love you.
A mum is someone you can go to at your weakest point and be cherished, be nourished, be accepted. Whereas Eunice used those weaknesses against us.
I'd never dealt with a case to this magnitude before, and it was important for me to see the whole case through and to take it through to court and get the result for those victims, having spent a horrific childhood with this woman who's supposed to protect them.
Eunice Spry was convicted of 26 charges of abuse and was sentenced to 14 years.
Eunice did everything to destroy us. And through all that hell she's put me through, she's failed.
Christopher is now happily married and is a youth worker, helping the same kind of children he once was.
I am going to survive this, and that is the greatest. 2 fingers up to her. That is the greatest. That will piss her off the most, the fact that we're not suffering now.
No happiness.
Hello. So what have you done today?
Daniel is Skyping his best friend Tanya, who helps him come to terms with the conviction of his father.
Am I wrong in thinking that he should give me some sort of remorse on his part, because to explain himself, or at least to apologise?
He's had 25 years to apologise. You should think, I'm not going to get any remorse from him because he's had plenty of opportunity. I don't think it's an apology you want. I'm not sure what it is you want.
Me neither.
But you want something. You want him to actually be genuine with it, and you're not going to get it, babe. So by chasing it, you're just going to do your own head in.
So Tanya is my best friend. She has been my biggest supporter as regards trying to get my closure, if you like.
You never know. He may come out of prison. Prison might have triggered something in his head. And he may come out and go, do you know what? I am so sorry. I mean, he's probably not going to.
But I won't.
You may not need to chase him.
I won't have a relationship with it when he comes out of prison. That's something I've been quite clear. I'm still not completely over it. There are still parts of me that is still very angry to both of them. But as a whole, you know, I'm in a better place. And if I can encourage other people to come forward purely through my story, then I feel like the pain was all worth it. All right, babes. Love you lots. See you later.
Daniel has built himself an army of friends who continue to help him battle the effects of his trauma and the pending prison release of his father.
What was the first living creature to go into space? A monkey, a dog, or a cockroach?
A monkey?
No. It was a dog.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, but you didn't. You said monkey.
It's a dog.
Katrina's childhood was full of fear and misery. A world a million miles away from the life she has created for her daughter, Madison.
I wanted nothing more in the world but to have my daughter. And I was so lucky and blessed to have a little girl, and I always wanted a little girl. And she's amazing. Do you think I'm a good mum?
Yeah.
Why?
Does he make my room?
I make your room?
Yeah.
And the first time I held my little girl in my arms, the love was so overwhelming. I couldn't comprehend the emotions that I was feeling, this overwhelming love and protection for my child, because I'd not had that. I'd not received that from my mum.
What does it mean to sing a cappella?
Oh, the girls with Fat Amy. Oh.
So what's the answer?
Sing without instruments.
Yes.
Yes. I shower my child, my daughter, with absolute love. We have a really good relationship. I would die for my daughter. I would kill for her. Say you had to write a story or a description about your mum at school. What would you write about me?
I love you.